FloWrestling here in Ames with Iowa State head coach Kevin Dresser, and the season is almost here. Another season on the way. I want to talk first about the Wrestle-offs that are coming up because they're going to be a pretty big deal. So can you tell me about the format and then whatever you can tell us about the matchups, lineup, all that good stuff?
So we're going to try to do something a little bit different this year. Wrestle-offs are a hard thing to. I don't know if there's a way to get them perfect, but you want to try to get them as perfect as you can because you want to give everybody a fair shot, especially when you have some weight classes that are, critical and up for grabs, and we always seem to have a couple of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of get down to the first round of Wrestle-offs on Saturday, October 25th. We'll schedule it kind of around a home football game here, stay away from the football game. And then we'll have the finals of each weight class the following day. We're going to go to Ames High School just to put them in a high school environment with the crowd. And that'll be kind of step one for best 2 out of 3. Then we'll be back and open up our season 2 weeks later. We're going to do something a little different this year. We're calling it the Cyclone Invite. And it's a way for us to kind of go to step 2. So if it's going to be 2 out of 3, you're going to have to perform that weekend as well. So the format for that is we're going to put 2 guys per weight class, and we've got a total of 5 teams coming. So it's going to be Southern Illinois Edwardsville, Utah Valley, us, Wisconsin, and Cal Baptist. So we got 5 teams, so each team will get to put in 2 so they can do their Wrestle-offs in Ames, Iowa as well. And then we'll see how that stacks out. So in theory, if you win on October 26th and then you win at the Cyclone Invite or place higher than your counterpart, then you're the guy for at least, we're going to have it till at least November and December, assuming that we don't get injured. If we have a split, then we're probably going to do a third match that evening right there, right after the tournament, like right there in Hilton while we got the refs and the mats and the fans. So that's the way we're going to do it, right or wrong. It's a way that we can give everybody what we feel is a fair choice, and we'll put them in a typical Wrestle-off situation, and then we'll also put them in a real environment with real refs and real fans.
And ultimately, the coaching staff has to evaluate what they think gives the team the best chance to win. But this way, I think, is also great because it gives fans the most chance to get familiar with the team and get to know, get some early results and get some early action.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably no secrets out there. There's going to be some weight classes that are going to be really hotly contested, especially like 149 because you got Panero Johnson and Jacob Frost right now. And, we got a lot of season to figure out yet, so it doesn't mean that whoever wins that is stone cold the guy, but you definitely have a strong leg up going into the meat of the season.
And then you brought in 2 All-Americans from Northern Colorado, but they don't have cakewalks to their starting spots either. I mean, they're going to have some competition as well, I imagine.
Yeah, there's going to be some competition, and I think we had that conversation coming in with those guys, in that you feel like if you're going to be in a top program, you're going to have to battle for a position regardless of who you are. It's not uncommon for All-Americans to have to wrestle off. In fact, as a coach, that's what you want, is you want a competitive room. So they're definitely going to be the front runners in both of those situations, like at 125 and 157, and then of course at 197 with Rocky. So you got 3 All-Americans that'll eventually wrestle off, but it'll be they will be tested.
Yeah, and Poulin at 125, you said, and then Zerbin at 157, and Elam at 197.
Yep. Is
Elam, how's his health? Is he going to be able to wrestle off now?
He's definitely making good progress the last couple of weeks. We'll pick and choose to wrestle him. We're going to put him on somewhat of a pitch count. I'm going to, I'll be transparent on that he's going to be on a pitch count, and we've got a strategy, and so, but really had a good week this week. We're on Thursday. He's had a really good Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and he's excited and moving well, and so he sure is a talent. So he'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen him all the way back at Junior Worlds. I got to see him up close personally. He was great there. 149, you mentioned Panero and Frost. We got to talk to Panero just now. We're going to talk to both Frosts a little bit afterwards, after practice. But Panero sounded like had a great mental attitude about being at 149, knowing ahead of time, and knowing that there's competition. There's All-Americans everywhere. So he's but he seems like he's in a good place to go out and wanted to wrestle his best, not worry about anything down the line, postseason type stuff, or get ahead of himself.
Right.
One match at a time type deal.
Yep.
And then Frost, we'll get a chance to talk about, but I guess just what I'm really getting at is any weight class changes that are going to create things like that. I think Frost moving up and then Pinheiro knowing 49 the whole time was a big question mark for how is Iowa State going to juggle all this talent. The good problems to have is the cliche. So is there anybody else that is moving around or any other weight classes that are maybe
I think initially we'll probably start Evan Frost at 141 and then progress him down throughout the month of November to 133. So he'll get some reps. You know, he might even get a chance just to get a match in with Ichimandia, because we obviously got to get Ichimandia ready to go for the All-Star match as well on November 1st. So yeah, he'll progress down there at some point. Garrett Grice right now is the #1 ranked seeded guy at 133 pounds. He's doing a really good job for us. So that'll be a barn burner too at some point, I'm guessing.
And then 184, I counted 4 guys that I could all imagine starting. One is the transfer from Ryder, Isaac Dean. But there's Bartle, Villascusa, Nakaborin. Is that a weight? And then 165 is the other one I was looking at with Riggins, Uten, and Rojas. So, again, good problems to have, but are those guys all in the weight class? Or did I identify those weight classes correctly?
Yep, 65 will be Rojas, and Uten will go on Friday, that 25th, and then the winner will get Riggins on the 26th. We'll take the top 2 guys at each weight to November 8th, the Cyclone invite. 84, you know, the only last year we were haunted by injuries, and this year so far so good. But we did unfortunately have to. We're probably going to medically redshirt Sawyer Bartell. He's a real talent, but we're fighting a knee injury, so we had to get that cleaned up, and we're probably in a 4-month rehab situation for him. So we'll have Dean as the top seed at 184, Noctiborn, and Villascusa will wrestle off to see who wrestles Dean on that Sunday.
And then the only other weight we didn't talk about is 74. I got Gaitan as probably the #1 seed.
Yeah, Gaitan's the front runner at that weight. We've got a young kid in there that transferred in as a JUCO national champ named Melton Poe. He'll wrestle one of the Helgesons, the Jacob Helgeson that was a 3-time state champ out of Johnston. Those guys will wrestle to see who wrestles MJ. So, you know, we feel like we've got some good quality guys there as well.
Yeah, and then Bastida getting ready for the All-Star Classic. Got Chimenia getting ready for the All-Star Classic. Before we move to that, just, man, I can't wait for those wrestle-offs, because that's going to be like a little preview, a little bite-sized snack, getting ready for just the season before it comes up. A great opportunity for local fans to get very well acquainted.
We should sell some tickets at Sunday, October 26th at 2 p.m.
Yeah, get them now.
Yep, we should sell some tickets. It'd be good.
And then there's still tickets available for the All-Star Classic. That's going to be in New Jersey, and you got two reps, 2 very exciting wrestlers. How has that process been for them? How has it been for, you know, a chance to get more Iowa State out there to the world of maybe other fans that would not have seen them otherwise?
Well, I think it's great to get out and compete. I mean, you know, these guys we don't have an NFL career, and we don't have an NBA career and a Major League Baseball career. So you only get 4 swings at the bat right now. And so I think the more you can put yourself in big time environments, the better. I think it's great for wrestling. You know, obviously you have some shucking and jiving and some guys trying to avoid each other, but if we can get a shot to be in there and we're healthy, we're going to take it all the time.
And then a busy November for Iowa State, because
really
Cyhawk
busy.
is also there. So any initial thoughts on, besides that it's shaping up to be one of the best after the last several have been extremely exciting and competitive? So anything else to be on the lookout besides, obviously, it's a huge match for an early season duel?
No, I mean, obviously the last 4 years, it's been a barn burner, and we've been on the wrong side of the barn. So we got to change that. We got to figure out how to get our hand raised as a team for that. But you know, they always have a great team, and it's been going on for 50 years, and it's just a big deal in the state of Iowa. And you know, obviously I think the United States wrestling, the country likes to watch that dual meet. So yeah, we're excited. ESPN reached out to us last week. So it'll be on, I don't know if it's been put out there yet, but it'll be noon live on ESPN, the flagship.
Oh, wow.
So that's a commercial. I'm running a commercial for that, which I think the only time that's ever happened was 2 years ago when we were at Hilton. So we're excited to be on that platform, and you know, it'd be a great great for the state of Iowa, and just a great November 30th.
Yeah, that's a great exclusive for this. We're going to try to put this up here today, so I hope that's okay.
There you go.
That's on there.
Yeah, I think it is, but if it isn't, who cares? It's not
Right.
like it's not the last time I'll be in trouble or the first time. So
Well, no, it's good, and you know, we like seeing wrestling. I mean, we're
Yeah.
FloWrestling there at ESPN. We're different, but more wrestling on bigger platforms. I mean, they're obviously a bigger deal, and a huge opportunity for the sport to capitalize on that. So we love to see
well,
it as well.
it's in the works. I think at the Big 12 office. So if I'm leaking it, I'm leaking it. But we'll just leave it at this. It's tentatively set, and from everything we're hearing, it's a done deal. But I guess the Big 12 will release it the way they'll release it. So that covered my butt right there.
There we
If
go.
I said something wrong, right there.
Yeah, it's up to the
Yeah.
it's the T's are being crossed and the I's are
Right.
being dotted.
Right.
So just
right. It's in the
take-
works. It's in
take
the
that.
works.
Yeah, just be hyped for what
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
announced soon.
Pretend like you didn't know about it.
Nice. No, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I look forward to it, just like we would always. And you mentioned how important wrestling is in Iowa, so that's a seg into going back a little bit to your early career, just kind of letting people know how you got here, because to me it's one of the more impressive stories. It's more fun things to research. Is you're Humboldt High School, state champ at Iowa, and then you stay home. You go to Iowa in the Golden Gable era, win a national title there. And then you pretty quickly end up as a high school coach in Virginia, correct?
Yep.
So, I mean, and then the career possession, was it Grundy, and then Christiansburg,
Yep.
then
Virginia
the
Tech.
leapfrog to Virginia Tech, and then Iowa State, and now you've got Iowa State firing on all cylinders. The program's got as much history as literally any other wrestling program. But I guess my question is, well, to start, you go high school, wrestling, all everything, then top of the heap at college, the top level that you can aspire to. What was the transition like? Then you go to Virginia and coaching in high school.
I got a really great opportunity when I was 25 years old. I hung around Iowa City for a couple of years, and Coach Gable had me doing some recruiting and some Hawkeye Wrestling Club stuff. And it was basically 1988, and I did have aspirations to wrestle internationally, but I was 4 years away from the next Olympic cycle. I mean, and I wasn't making any money. And so I got a call from some people in Grundy, Virginia, and Grundy High School had really had a good program. They had won a couple state titles. So I took a job there in the fall of 1988 and had a great time, worked with some great people. We had some really good teams, stayed there for 8 years, thought I was ready to get out. And I wasn't, and ended up starting all over at Christiansburg, which was a completely different animal, because at Grundy, they really had a lot of resources to win, and at Christiansburg, we had to create them. So I was there for 10 years, and we got it going at Christiansburg. Again, had some great people to work with, had some great assistant coaches, and Virginia Tech called in 2006, and I was 7 miles down the road and took over at Virginia Tech, and again, was fortunate enough to hire some really good coaches. Obviously, Tony Roby's doing a fantastic job at Virginia Tech, and Tony, along with some other coaches, we got that thing going. And then Iowa State comes calling in 2017, and here we are. So starting our 9th year. So time goes by fast.
Yeah, I vividly remember the press conference when you started here. That feels like yesterday, but
Yeah, it does. It does.
It goes by. When you're in a seasonal sport like this, it's
Yeah.
as soon as the season ends, you're ready got to get started on the next one.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that you're pretty well known as a program builder, taking programs and communities that have the will but don't have the program where they want it to be, and you have been at the head on the high school level, and then at Virginia Tech, you took it to heights that it hadn't reached before, and are continuing on with Coach Roby now. But is that a good assessment, program builder, or would you phrase it a different way?
I kind of always have been one of those guys that when you're an athlete, you just kind of go year to year. And, when you're a high school athlete, at least for me, I was gunning for a state title 4 times. And then you become a college athlete and you're gunning to win a national championship as an individual. So I think you get blinders on if you're competitive, and you just block out everything else and you're focusing on that February or that March, right? And so that's always been me. It's hard for me to look too far past this March, to be honest, because I've always had that mentality. So when I was a high school coach, the state championships were always in late February. And when those were over, then I started thinking about, all right, what do we got to do? What's the next 12 months look like? And then that's just always kind of been my mentality, right or wrong. So I kind of got blinders on to March in Cleveland right now, and then I'll figure it out from there. So I don't really ever try to, like, the Virginia Tech thing popped up unexpectedly, and I thought, wow, this would be a great challenge. And then the Iowa State thing popped up, and I think, wow, I grew up, an hour and 10 minutes from here, to go back and to have an opportunity to help, get this program back to where I knew they wanted it to get to. It was just a timing thing. So, my phone might ring a year from now, and I might get excited, or I might retire here forever, which is probably what will happen. But for me, it's just truly a year-by-year thing.
That probably is the only way to do it, right? It's just one season at a time.
Yeah.
What are the similarities and differences between building up a high school state powerhouse and then a D1 collegiate powerhouse? Because I imagine they're pretty different, but there's...
Well, I think, it's just the circumstances of, what's going on, what's the rules. Starting here in 2017, if you would have told me that I would be doing as much fundraising and as much donor interaction, and realizing that we can't win alone, you feel like you have a little bit more control. When you're a high school coach, and then you get to college, and there's a lot of moving parts, and now you got transfer portal that you really don't have much control of, and you got NIL that you don't have a lot of control of. So you get thrown kind of a different rule book every year, and you have to adapt. So I think they're all hard in that anytime you're trying to win at the highest level, whether you're trying to win state titles or national titles, there's still work involved. It wasn't easy taking Christiansburg from where they were to where we finished. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of time and a lot of really good people. And the same thing at Virginia Tech, and now the same thing at Iowa State. It's hard in a different way, but it's still. But you know what? If you get up every morning and it's fun, and the sport of wrestling's been really good to me my whole life, and I still getting up and enjoy it. I love being. My favorite thing of all the tasks that I have to do is being in the practice room. So at 3:45, that's when I'm going to be in my element. I like being around the guys. When I was a high school coach, I loved being around the guys. It was the best apprenticeship. I always say, best thing you can do to be a Division I head coach is to go be a high school coach for 10 years or plus. So, I was 8 years at Grundy and 10 years at Christiansburg. So that was a great apprenticeship. Sure, there's skill sets you got to, and processes and rules you have to learn when you go from a high school to a Division I level, but it's still work.
And you've mentioned a lot about having a great team with you and how it takes a lot of great people. And part of that has to be identifying great people. How do you identify who you need to bring onto a team, whatever environment or situation you're in?
When you're a high school coach, you don't have the budgets to work with. Obviously, you have a college coach, so you got to find a lot of good volunteers, and a lot of good parents and a lot of good ex-wrestlers in the community. We were able to do that. Grundy kind of had it going on. Like, I really learned a lot at Grundy. The people that started that program really understood how to build a youth program. They really understood how to take care of their athletes away from the practice room. So I really learned a lot. So when I went to Christiansburg, I kind of copied a lot of what I learned at Grundy. But they really had a great system, and they still do. They've been winning state titles for 40 years, They just got a great support staff and great people in that community. That was kind of the difference there. And then, of course, when you get to college, you got to get the right people involved. And so I've made a lot of really good hires, and there's times I've made a few bad hires, but for the most part, everybody that I've ever had as an assistant coach was really valuable in the room. And then a lot of them have turned out to be really valuable out of the room. And it's twofold now. Like you can have the best. If you can't perform out of the room in the community and in the fundraising world and in the negotiation world with the parents and high school coaches and club coaches representing their guys, that's a whole nother skill set that you got to have.
Yeah, you mentioned NIL, you mentioned
portal, yeah.
Transfer portal are the two big ones, but it seems like college is changing, not just, it's always evolving, but it seems like it kind of hit the accelerator, and it's changing faster than ever now. Does that check from your experience?
That's a good way to put it. Like, yeah, they stepped on the gas the last couple of years. And so, your life when you thought there's not many breaks. It's a good thing I like to work because there's hardly any downtime. I mean, it's just, people say, when's your recruiting season? I said, if I'm awake, that's when your recruiting season is. That's, so it's definitely accelerated, and it's a whirlwind right now. And hopefully, there's some new rules that went in July 1st. I think the $1 million question there is enforcement. And so if they're going to have these new rules and kind of try to put the genie back in the bottle a little bit, then the enforcement part better be effective. So I think we're all sitting there kind of just, waiting to see how they're going to, because there's people out there that are going to try to do things, and so are they going to be able to do them, or are they not going to be able to do them? That's going to dictate the workload for all of us going forward, because if there's going to be no rules, then you're just you're in perpetual fundraising mode all the time,
right,
to try to keep up.
There's no governor on the gas pedal.
No, there's no governor and there's no cap. So, if you can raise $1 million, you raise $1 million. If you can raise $5 million, you better go raise $5 million. That's just the world the way it is. If there's going to be no governor put in the sport right now.
So without the enforcement, obviously that is something that it seems like everybody in college sports is trying to work together. And how it succeed, I don't think anybody's putting any predictions down now, because if you were trying to, like as you mentioned earlier, if you would have said in 2017 or whatever that this would be the situation, nobody would have believed you, but here we are.
Right.
So is there anything that you think, just college sports in general, doesn't have to be for wrestling, but enforcement, or is there anything else that seems like it is a threat that could imperil anything from just weakening the sport as fan interest, or programs being dropped, things like that? Anything that you kind of like maybe keeps you up at night, or you worry about the sport because of where college is heading in general, college athletics?
Well, at the highest level, football rules the roost, and so whatever football does and however they align themselves conference-wise, and are they going to put together a Power 5, or not a Power 5, but a power conference, and they get all the money in terms of the ESPN money and everybody else doesn't? That all trickles down to us. So you look at, a perfect example is when all the conference realignment happened. I think Oregon State, and Coach Pendleton's doing a great job out there, but Oregon State, when the music stopped, didn't have a chair. When you don't have a chair, you're not getting that $30+ million a year in a TV contract. So if your TV contract was, I think ours is like 37 or 40 million. If you go from 37 or 40 million down to 4 or 5 million, that affects your program completely. You go from a Power 4 conference to a mid-major really quick. And so I think that's the scary part is when you're used to perform. It's one thing if you don't, if you're performing at a $4 or $5 million level, and I'm talking in terms of TV money, because that's the thing that helps our budgets the most. And now you get to jump up to a 40 or 50 million, you feel like you won the lottery, right? But when you go from the 45 or 40 million down to the 3 or 4 million, that's when you have to learn how to survive and win at a completely different level. So, I guess in my situation, I've had to figure it out when we didn't have a lot of money. When other programs we've had a lot of money, and sure makes the job a lot easier.
Yeah. So much of just college athletics in general is driven by football TV money, as you mentioned, and then wrestling and the other sports that are all kind of in that same point, either the Olympic sports or non-rev sports, whatever you want to call them. But they still have their own ecosystem and economy of their own. What, in your mind, does wrestling have to do, if anything, to ensure that it can stand on its own legs, that it can thrive on its own, that it can grow? Are there any broad things from rule changes to what kind of events you would like to see, or the season schedule, anything that wrestling you would like to see it continue to move in the same direction? Pretty much an open-ended question of what does wrestling need to do to be as viable as possible as its own sport?
Good question. My fear is that in 10 years, when I'll be done coaching by then for sure, that how many Division I programs will we have in wrestling? Because if we got roughly 80, I think we got 79 or 80 right now. If we got 80, what's can we function with 30? Because if this revenue sharing and these athletic departments having to come up with millions and millions of dollars all the time to basically pay football and basketball players, I mean, that's what it is. At some point, when those ADs and those institutions can't raise enough money to be competitive, then all right, you whack this sport, it's 3 or 4 million you just saved, and you whack this sport, and there's another 3 or 4 million. So I do think the Olympic sports, that's just my opinion, and I hope it doesn't come true, but I do think the Olympic sports are very, very vulnerable right now. And I think what happens once you get, one athletic director that feels that pressure and drops 4 or 5 sports, then I think it becomes easier for the second and the third guy to do it. So that's what I worry about. If I don't say I lay awake at night about it, but I worry about that, not just for wrestling, but for Olympic sports. Now, how do you ensure that doesn't happen? I do think athletic directors, when it comes to that point, will try to keep sports that are really successful, because I still think they want to win, and they want to win conference championships and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you can position yourself as have a really good program, or else you have to be somewhat self-supportive. So if you need $4 million a year to run your program, you better, if the AD says, hey, we don't have $4 million for you, and you're the wrestling coach, and you can say, well, I can help you find 2 or 3, your chances of staying around are probably a lot more. So that's probably too much information, but that's what I think could possibly happen, is that wrestling in all Olympic sports 10 years from now, it scares me to think what numbers we might have. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, you look at just the numbers of it, and it's hard to see the math and where it's going, and the other sports and how they're going to be able to survive and kind of seem relevant when you're dealing with a budget for a football team that's the same as the NFL.
Yeah.
And everything else just kind of exists alongside it. I guess, is there anything that you think, so obviously community support and being self-sufficient, that's probably the best defense for any D1 program to stave off any worst case scenarios, getting axed, anything like that. Is there anything that the sport in general, the D1 schedule, or could be doing that might help programs align them, or get that community support and get that self-sufficiency, or is it really just each circumstance is going to be different?
There's always probably a few things you could do to tweak. Everybody obviously always loves the dual meets, and so I think this thing they're doing with the National Dual Meet Championships, I think that's a step in the right direction. The college coaches, and obviously it hit us big last year with a lot of injuries, but for whatever reason, and we see it with our football team at Iowa State's really good right now, but they lost a game last weekend that they would have never lost the first weekend of the year because they had so many injuries. And so for whatever reason, I can't figure it out, but the last 5 years in football, basketball, and wrestling, the amount of documented season-ending injuries is crazy. So that's why the national duels is scary from that perspective, is you're there scrapping for 2 days with the best guys in the nation, and it's November, and you're throwing 4 or 5 matches on them in one weekend. So you see, it's kind of scary going into it. I'll be honest, as a coach, it's like I wish it was the good old days where we walked to school in the snow and we could wrestle 40 matches, 45. I wrestled 45 matches a year as a Division I wrestler. And now we're seeing kids going into the national tournament with 12, 16, 18. And we still have more injuries. Like, what's going on? I can't figure it out. Like, it blows my mind how we have so many injuries. We scrap so much less than when I was a high school coach, so much less than I was when I was in college. It's 20% of what we did back then, the workload. And we have more injuries.
Right. Yeah.
I have no idea.
I've certainly thought the same thing, and I don't have any easy answers because, as a sport, you love competition. Just as a fan, you want to see the best compete as much as possible. But if the best are saying, the more I compete, the more chances I'm going to get injured, then now you're working at cross purposes, and it makes it difficult.
And you really want to throw them. Because really the only way it's like anything else, the best way to improve in the sport of wrestling is to go out and live wrestle and experiment and trial and error, right? You can drill, you can run, you can lift weights, that all complements, but you got to live wrestle. And the more you live wrestle, the more you understand real positions, right?
Yeah.
But also the double-edged sword of that is now you're also in a situation where you might tear this or you might tear that. Never used to have to worry about that. Like, never thought about it once. Didn't think about injuries at all when I was a high school coach. Didn't think about injuries when I was a college athlete. Like, oh, might I get injured today? Now every time you walk into a big meet, you walk out of there going, man, we got 10 guys that wrestled, and 10 guys that right now look like they're going to be ready to go on Monday. It's weird. I wish, I don't know if kids are bigger, faster, stronger, that's creating the injuries. We've had just crazy injuries. We had a kid did a cartwheel 5 weeks ago and tore his ACL doing a cartwheel. You know.
That's by far the worst type, but not.
Yeah.
You're going live, you can understand it.
Yeah.
If you're stretching, doing gymnastics, just whatever.
Right.
Cartwheel.
So.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a conundrum. Well, I know we're taking up a lot of your time, but I do want to end on a better note. David Carr and being out in Croatia for that performance. I know he wanted gold. I know that's what you wanted for him. But seeing how capable he was and how close he got to beating a guy like Sidikov, just your thoughts on his performance and how awesome it is to see a David Carr at a stage like that.
He finished 5th, and I got a text message from him within 12 hours of it. He texted me, and he goes, "I'm not that far away." He said, "I'm going to be competing for the gold medal in Los Angeles. I got to keep making adjustments," and that's what he always says. He just comes back from it really, really positive. And I know I stay away from him for 4 to 6 hours, but consistently every time he loses, he reaches out to like a lot of the coaches and staff. So he's not just interacting with me, and he's analyzing all the time. But I always say, when you love the sport as much as he does and you're as talented as he is, then you got a guy that can really make big. Think about, you can make the kind of jumps he can make even from 25 and 26 years old. He just turned 26. How much better he is than he was 24, and that just comes from a guy that loves the sport. So he was right there. I mean, gosh, he lost the medal to the Olympic champ and the guy who beat the Olympic champ both in the last 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So he's right there. He's just got to figure that little piece of the puzzle out, and when he figures that out, he's going to be right there. But no, he's a great guy to have in the room because he's in the room all the time.
And he's still training all the time.
He's in the room all the time
with everybody.
And I'm sure some days he gets back from the World Championships. He's just probably in there. He hasn't went live since the World Championships, but he's doing a lot of drilling, hard drilling, and maybe he has went live a couple times because sometimes he goes in the morning and I don't know when he's in there. But he's got his shoes on all the time. Yeah.
And I imagine it's just a huge benefit too to the rest of the room and guys seeing where you can get to, the levels that are out there that are all possible to get to at Ames and.
Yeah, and you got Marcus Coleman, who had a really good off-season for us. I think he got 4th in the U.S. Open and won a big match in that Russian dual meet. And, next year you bring Younger in there, and as these guys graduate, Ichimendia, and we got Renario Ortega, who's a 2-time world champ. So having those kind of guys to train with your team is what everybody wants to create with their college program is, having those old guys in there that not only can teach them but can dish out the whoopings. When those young guys need the whoopings, that's invaluable.
Nice. Well, we look forward to watching some of those whoopings at practice. We appreciate you welcoming us in here, and we look forward to that practice. Anything else before I let you get going?
No, today's a good day for you to come because we're going to scrap at 3:45. So
that's great to hear.
Be hot in there. Get out of the way. There's going to be bodies flying everywhere. All right.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yep.